You don't belong here. The moment that shook Meghan Markle's entire Hollywood comeback plan to the core. It was supposed to be the night she reclaimed her spotlight. It turned into a public humiliation that even Buckingham Palace couldn't ignore. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. She stepped onto the red carpet, flashing that signature smile. The cameras clicked, the lights flared, and Meghan Markle thought, for a fleeting second, that she had made it back into Hollywood's good graces. But then, the boos started. It wasn't a murmur. It was loud, clear, unmistakable. "You don't belong here," someone shouted from the crowd. A second voice joined in. Then another. Security stiffened. Reporters stepped back. One cameraman turned off his rig entirely. Meghan froze. The smile faltered. This was the National Board of Review Awards. A prestigious, invitation-only ceremony attended by the creme de la creme of Hollywood. The place where A-listers toast cinematic excellence and power brokers whisper about Oscar predictions. Not the kind of place where someone gets booed off the carpet. So how did this happen? That's what this story is all about. Because what unfolded that night wasn't just a PR disaster. It wasn't just a red carpet mishap or an awkward social faux pas. It was a complete rejection. Not just by a crowd, not just by a few angry voices, but by the very industry Meghan had fought to belong to all her life. And it didn't end at the red carpet. No, that was just Act 1. This exposé will take you inside the rooms Meghan was escorted out of, into the conversations held about her behind closed doors, into the secret strategy meeting where her name was erased from the guest list, only for her to show up anyway. And we'll reveal the final confrontation that ended in tears, threats, and a public relations crisis that Hollywood is still whispering about. But let's rewind for a second. Why was Meghan even at this event? Did she get an invitation or forge one? And why, after years of trying to cement her status as a powerful force in American media, was she so viciously rejected at an event filled with the very people she once called friends? Because make no mistake, this was not random. Something had been brewing for months. A silent war in Hollywood. A shift in allegiances. And Meghan Markle? She walked straight into the battlefield. And the worst part? She didn't see it coming. Let's back up and paint the scene. It's a crisp, glamorous night in New York City. Inside the Plaza Hotel, the stars are already arriving. Leonardo DiCaprio, Carey Mulligan, Bradley Cooper. Cameras flash. Publicists move like chess pieces. The air buzzes with anticipation. Then suddenly, a black SUV pulls up, fashionably late. The back door opens, and out steps Meghan Markle. She's alone, dressed in a sleek, body-contoured emerald gown. Hair slicked back in a soft bun. Subtle makeup. Diamond drop earrings. She looks like a woman in charge. But there's something off. Because there's a noticeable pause when she steps out. Photographers hesitate. Reporters exchange glances. No one calls her name. Now ask yourself. When was the last time Meghan Markle wasn't the center of attention? Especially when she wanted to be. She pauses, forces a smile, then strides forward as if nothing's wrong. But everything is wrong. Inside sources say the event coordinators were shocked to see her. One production assistant later told an insider blog. Someone literally whispered, "She's here?" Who invited her? Others in the crowd weren't whispering. Within minutes of Meghan making her way down the press line, someone from the general audience shouted, "Go back to Montecito." Another yelled, "This isn't your crown anymore." It spiraled fast. The organizers tried to salvage the moment. A security detail approached. Meghan, visibly stunned, asked if everything was okay. She was told to remain calm, but to stand aside for a moment. That's when whispers spread that she had not been officially confirmed as a guest. And in that moment, Hollywood turned its back. Because if there's one thing the film industry despises, it's chaos on the red carpet. It ruins the aesthetic. It distracts from the power players. It becomes the story, and this was supposed to be about the films. Now it was about her. And for all the buzz, all the Netflix money, all the podcast attempts and royal titles, nobody was coming to her defense. You'd think an A-lister would step in. A fellow actress. A director. A friendly face. But no one moved. Not even the stars she once claimed as her inner circle. And that begs the question, what happened to Meghan's Hollywood clout? Because remember, just a few short years ago, she was everywhere. On Oprah. On magazine covers. Inking multi-million-dollar deals. riding the wave of royal drama all the way to the top of America's media machine. She was untouchable. So how did she end up publicly uninvited? The answer is complicated. It starts with leaked emails, alleged diva behavior, and a secret list that may prove Meghan has been blacklisted from more than just this one event. And yet, she walked in anyway. Now think about that. Why would Meghan knowingly show up to a high-profile, guest-list-only awards show without confirmation? Was it a stunt? A calculated attempt to regain the narrative? Or did someone close to her set her up for failure? One thing is clear, she was not welcome. And by the end of the night, Meghan would be escorted out a side door, shielded by a swarm of flashing cameras and tight-lipped staffers. No awards, no press interviews, no dignified exit, just whispers, headlines, and the start of a scandal that might be worse than anything she faced in Buckingham Palace. Because in the royal world, you can always lean on tradition. But in Hollywood, you only get one shot. And it looks like Meghan Markle may have just blown hers. What came next was even worse. Behind closed doors, a confrontation took place that left event organizers rattled. One famous actress reportedly told Meghan to her face, "You used your title to get in. That's not how this works anymore." And if you think that was the harshest blow, you're wrong. Because someone else showed up. Someone far more powerful. And what they whispered into a microphone would silence the entire room. You'll hear that in a few moments. But first, you need to understand just how far this fall from grace goes. Because this wasn't an isolated humiliation. This was the culmination of years of tension, broken alliances, and secrets Meghan hoped would never see the light of day. And in the chapters ahead, we'll show you the paper trail, the blacklist, the backroom deals, the burner phone text messages, and the real reason Meghan's name is now being quietly removed from guest lists across Hollywood. This story isn't just about being booed. It's about being erased. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Did you hear that? Because Meghan Markle sure did. It was the kind of moment that freezes time. 1 second, you're smiling for the cameras. The next, you're staring down the barrel of public rejection. So let me ask you this. Have you ever witnessed someone realize, mid-step, that they walked straight into a room they were never supposed to be in? That was Meghan on the red carpet. It began with a flicker, a shift in the energy. A pause that didn't make sense at first. And then, the silence. Not the kind that's soft or reverent. No, this was sharp. Calculated. A silence that slices deeper than screams. The crowd didn't cheer. The press didn't shout her name. There was no Meghan. This wet. No choruses of gorgeous, Duchess, or who are you wearing? Instead, a single voice pierced the quiet. A man near the back of the crowd, older, press credentials dangling from his neck. He cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted, "You're not invited." That was the first strike. Heads turned. Meghan flinched. But still, she smiled. You know that smile. The tight one. The one that says, "I'm okay," when absolutely nothing is okay. Then came the second voice. "Go back to Netflix." Now there were murmurs. Shuffling feet. Cameras were still clicking, but not for her. Photographers were capturing the reaction, not the arrival. Someone else shouted, "This isn't a podcast taping, it's a film awards show." And just like that, it wasn't an arrival. It was a spectacle. And Meghan? She was the wrong kind of headliner. Now here's what's wild, and you're going to want to hear this part. She knew something was off the second her car door opened. According to a source close to the driver, Meghan sat in the back seat for nearly 45 seconds after the SUV parked, checking her phone repeatedly. She asked, "Are they ready for me?" But no one came to open the door. There was no red carpet handler, no PR escort, no publicist waiting to smooth her into the crowd. In Meghan's world, that's a red flag the size of the Buckingham gates. Still, she opened the door herself and stepped out. Why? Was it pride? Was it denial? Or was it calculated? A power move meant to reclaim the narrative? Because let's not forget, Meghan knows how the media works. She is media. So what was her play? Let's rewind a little. Earlier that week, her team had leaked whispers that she might make an appearance. Just a whisper, enough to create buzz, but not confirm anything. Tabloids speculated. Fan accounts started trending hashtags like #MeghanAtNBR and #DuchessOnTheCarpet. And yet, the official guest list? Her name wasn't there. Now this is where things get murky. A leaked screenshot from a staff-only event document showed that Meghan's name had been added and then crossed out. Why? Insiders say it had to do with a phone call, one that happened just 3 days before the awards. A call from someone very high up in the National Board of Review's inner circle. One producer reportedly warned, having her there turns the event into a circus. This isn't about royalty. It's about film. But Meghan showed up anyway. And the red carpet? It responded in kind. Here's what happened next. She took 3 steps forward. A cameraman lowered his lens. Not out of protest, but confusion. That pause. It was everywhere. You could feel it ripple down the press line. Some stars, already on the carpet, glanced over. Bradley Cooper turned his head for a second, then quickly turned back. Carey Mulligan, mid-interview, paused and gave a tight smile, the kind you give when you're watching a train derail in slow motion. And then came the strangest moment of all. A staffer, clipboard in hand, headset on, approached Meghan, looking visibly panicked. She whispered something in her ear. Meghan nodded. But then she stayed. She didn't leave. Instead, she adjusted her dress and turned toward the cameras again. That's when it got ugly. A group of attendees behind the press line started murmuring louder. Isn't she banned? She wasn't even nominated for anything. Didn't she crash the BAFTAs last year too? Suddenly, the crowd wasn't watching her. They were judging her. Openly. And here's the twist. Meghan kept smiling. Was it bravery? Or was she in too deep to back out? Because here's the thing. Once the flashes start, it's hard to walk away. But those flashes weren't for glamour. They were for headlines. For scandal. And they got what they came for. Because just as Meghan reached the midway point of the red carpet, a member of the organizing committee stepped forward. Short, middle-aged, dressed in a black tux and thick-framed glasses. He tapped her shoulder, gently. But the message was anything but soft. Eyewitnesses say he leaned in and said, Ms. Markle, I need to speak with you in private. Now let's pause here. Think about that. When was the last time you saw anyone pull a former royal aside on a red carpet, mid-step, in front of flashing cameras? This wasn't just awkward. It was calculated. She nodded, still smiling. Followed him a few steps off to the side. They spoke for no more than 20 seconds. When she returned, the expression had changed. Still smiling. But now it was frozen. Tight. Controlled. You could almost see the PR gears spinning behind her eyes. She did one final turn toward the camera, then exited the carpet entirely. Just like that. No interviews. No photos with fellow celebs. No inside access. Gone. And just in case you think this was all blown out of proportion, let me tell you this. The moment Meghan left, the red carpet breathed again. Suddenly, the press were energized. The stars relaxed. The tension dissipated. Even the background music was turned up again. And maybe the most chilling detail? The moment Meghan left the carpet, a publicist from the event reportedly walked over to a photographer and said, She wasn't supposed to be here. Read that again. She wasn't supposed to be here. So how did she get in? We'll cover that in the next chapter. And trust me, the emails are damning. But before we go there, there's one more moment you need to hear. Because as Meghan exited the carpet through a side entrance, caught in a flurry of paparazzi trying to follow her, a bystander shouted the one line that would go viral before midnight. Even your crown can't save you now. It was the kind of line that sticks, that trends, that burns into the cultural memory. And Meghan? She didn't respond. Not with a glance. Not with a word. Just that same frozen smile. The smile that says everything's fine, even when everything's falling apart. But what Meghan didn't know, inside that building, on the second floor, in a conference room just behind the ballroom, a meeting was happening. A private meeting. With a screenwriter, a director, and the head of the board. And Meghan's name? It was at the top of a document titled, Unauthorized Guests, Immediate Action Required. And what they decided in that room would make sure Meghan never walked into any room like this again. What came next was public, and brutal, and irreversible. But before the world saw that part, before the statement was made, one person pulled Meghan aside backstage and whispered something that would break her smile for good. We'll get to that. But first, let's talk about those emails. Because what we found next proves she was never supposed to be there. Have you ever crashed a party where you thought your name was on the list, but it wasn't? Now imagine that party is packed with Oscar winners, top-tier producers, and the very power brokers who shape Hollywood's future. Imagine believing you belong, only to find out the door you walked through wasn't even meant for you. That's the exact storm Meghan Markle walked into at the National Board of Review Awards.